Chapter 4, Lesson 2. The Middle Colonies, Farms and Cities. Main idea. The people who settled in the Middle Colonies made a society of great diversity. One American story. Elizabeth Ashbridge was only 19 years old when she arrived in America from England in the 1730s. Although she was an indentured servant, she hoped to earn her freedom and find a way to express her strong religious feelings. After several years, Elizabeth did gain freedom. In Pennsylvania, she joined a religious group called the Society of Friends, or Quakers. The new Quaker longed to share her beliefs openly. A voice from the past. I was permitted to see that all I had gone through was to prepare me for this day, and that the time was near when it would be required of me to go and declare to others what the God of mercy had done for my soul. Elizabeth Ashbridge, from Some Account of the Life of Elizabeth Ashbridge. The Quakers believed that many people of different beliefs could live together in harmony. They helped to create a climate of tolerance and acceptance in the middle colonies of New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware, as you will read in this section. A wealth of resources. The middle colonies had much to offer in addition to a climate of tolerance. A Frenchman named Michel Guillaume Jean de la Ch.4 praised the region's fair cities, substantial villages, extensive fields, decent houses, good roads, orchards, meadows, and bridges, where 100 years ago all was wild, woody, and uncultivated. The prosperity that Ch.4 described was typical of the middle colonies. Immigrants from all over Europe came to take advantage of this region's productive land. Their settlements soon crowded out Native Americans who had lived in the region for thousands of years. Among the immigrants who came to the middle colonies were Dutch and German farmers. They brought the advanced agricultural methods of their countries with them. Their skills, knowledge, and hard work would soon result in an abundance of foods. The middle colonies boasted a longer growing season than New England and a soil rich enough to grow cash crops. These were crops raised to be sold for money. Common cash crops included fruits, vegetables, and above all, grain. The middle colonies produced so much grain that people began calling them the breadbasket colonies. The importance of mills. After harvesting their crops of corn, wheat, rye, and other grains, farmers took them to a gristmill. There, millers crushed the grain between heavy stones to produce flour or meal. Human or animal power fueled some of these mills, but water wheels built along the region's plentiful rivers powered most of the mills. The bread that colonists baked with these products was crucial to their diet. Colonists ate about a pound of grain in some form each day, nearly 3 times more than Americans eat today. Even though colonists ate a great deal of grain, they had plenty left over to send to the region's coastal markets for sale. The cities prosper. The excellent harbors along the coast of the middle colonies were ideal sites for cities. New York City grew up at the mouth of the Hudson River, and Philadelphia was founded on the Delaware River. The merchants who lived in these growing port cities exported cash crops, especially grain, and imported manufactured goods. Because of its enormous trade, Philadelphia was the fastest growing city in the colonies. The city owed its expansion to a thriving trade in wheat and other cash crops. By 1720, it was home to a dozen large shipyards, places where ships are built or repaired. The city's wealth also brought many public improvements. Large and graceful buildings, such as Philadelphia's State House, which was later renamed Independence Hall, graced the city's streets. Street lights showed the way along paved roads. In 1748, a Swedish visitor named Peter Kalm exclaimed that Philadelphia had grown up overnight. A voice from the past. And yet its natural advantages, trade, riches, and power are by no means inferior to any, even the most ancient towns in Europe. Peter Kalm, quoted in America at 1750. New York could also thank trade for its rapid growth. The bustling port handled flour, bread, furs, and whale oil. At mid-century, an English naval officer admired the city's elegant brick houses, paved streets, and roomy warehouses. Such in this city, he said, that very few in England could rival in its show. A diverse region. Many different immigrant groups arrived in the port cities of the middle colonies. Soon, the region's population showed a remarkable diversity or variety in its people. One of the largest immigrant groups in the region, after the English, was the Germans. Many of the Germans arrived between 1710 and 1740. Most came as indentured servants fleeing religious intolerance. Known for their skillful farming, these immigrants soon made a mark on the middle colonies. German communities, wrote one historian, could be identified by the huge barns, the sleek cattle, and the stout workhorses. Germans also brought a strong tradition of craftsmanship to the middle colonies. For example, German gunsmiths first developed the long rifle. Other German artisans or craftspeople became ironworkers and makers of glass, furniture, and kitchenware. Cottage industries were common in the middle colonies and in Europe. Business people would hire people to work in their own homes performing tasks such as spinning thread or making goods. Cottage industries were the start of the factory system we know today. Germans built Conestoga wagons to carry their produce to town. These wagons used wide wheels suitable for dirt roads, and the wagon's curved beds prevented spilling when climbing up and down hills. The wagon's canvas covers offered protection from rain. Conestoga wagons would later be important in settling the West. The middle colonies became home to many people besides the Germans. There were also the English, Dutch, Scots-Irish, African, Irish, Scottish, Welsh, Swedish, and French. Because of that diversity in the middle colonies, different groups had to learn to accept or at least tolerate one another. A climate of tolerance. While the English Puritans shaped life in the New England colonies, many different groups contributed to the culture of the middle colonies. Because of the greater number of different groups, it was difficult for any single group to dominate the others. Thus, the region's diversity helped to create a climate of tolerance. Some of the region's religious groups also helped to promote tolerance. The middle colony's early settlers, the Dutch in New York and the Quakers in Pennsylvania, both practiced religious tolerance. That is, they honored the right of religious groups to follow their own beliefs without interference. Quakers also insisted on the equality of men and women. As a result, Quaker women served as preachers, and female missionaries traveled the world spreading the Quaker message. Quakers were also the first to raise their voices against slavery. Quaker ideals influenced immigrants in the middle colonies and eventually the whole nation. African Americans in the middle colonies. The tolerant attitude of many settlers in the middle colonies did not prevent slavery in the region. In 1750, about 7% of the middle colonies' population was enslaved. As in New England, many people of African descent lived and worked in cities. New York City had a larger number of people of African descent than any other city in the northern colonies. In New York City, enslaved persons worked as manual laborers, servants, drivers, and as assistants to artisans and craftspeople. Free African American men and women also made their way to the city, where they worked as laborers, servants, or sailors. Tensions existed between the races in New York City, sometimes leading to violence. In 1712, for example, about 24 rebellious slaves set fire to a building. They then killed 9 whites and wounded several others who came to put out the fire. Armed colonists caught the suspects, who were punished horribly. Such punishments showed that the whites would resort to force and violence to control slaves. Even so, the use of violence did little to prevent the outbreak of other slave rebellions. Force would also be used in the South, which had far more enslaved Africans than the North. In the next section, you will learn how the South's plantation economy came to depend on the labor of enslaved Africans.